Hi, I'm Erica. Welcome to my podcast. This is episode 6 of the 12th Carat Crafts, and I'm Sonoria12 or Erica, however you might know me. I'm a multi-craftful fiber artist from Southwest Florida in the United States, and this is my little place on the internet for screaming into the void. I like to share whatever crafting projects I'm working on at the moment. They could be knitting, crochet, spinning, weaving, cross stitch, or even blackwork embroidery. I have yet to try anything new during this wonderful quarantine period that we're in, but stay tuned. We'll see. I play with all kinds of string. That includes stringed instruments. I am a lifelong violinist, so maybe someday I'll even post some playing videos. We'll see. I haven't decided yet about that. So I'll just jump right into it. We'll start with knitting, since that's probably my primary craft, even though I don't do it as much as I used to. I've actually been knitting for the last 2 weeks, trying to get things done. You know, I have a bin full of projects that are just in various states of completion, or maybe just started. And now is a really good time to get things done so that I feel less guilty when I start new projects. If you're familiar with Ravelry, my Ravelry project pages that count as works in progress number somewhere in the 40s, and that's a little insane. So I'd like to get that number down to something a little more reasonable. So with that in mind, I went to my bin of unfinished projects and pulled out a project bag at random, and ended up selecting my Sea Mineral Mittens by Spillyjane. And let me grab those right here. Okay, so I'm on the first mitten, and I had decided I was going to finish this so that I could liberate the needles I was using. I had them on my US size 1 or 2.25 millimeter signature double points. I switched them out to, again, the same size, 2.25 millimeter US 1, 2 circulars from Knit Picks. These are the rainbow wooden interchangeables. They used to call them Knit Picks. I don't know, they were just interchangeables. They had another name, didn't they? Anyway, Harmonies? Knit Picks were they Harmonies? I can't remember. Anyway, so this is the mitten. This is the first of 2, obviously. Most people have 2 hands. So I am making 2 of these. This is all Knit Picks palette, which is their 100% Highland wool, not Highland, Peruvian, right? South American, Andean, I don't know, wool, 100% wool, not superwash. So this pattern is by Spillyjane, and she does a lot of mitten and sock patterns that are in colorwork. This one happens to be free, and I'm using the colors that are called for in the pattern. Some of them have been discontinued or retired. I just happen to still have them in my stash. So if you can see, it's got this lovely wavy cast on with a flower design, and then you get into the waves. In the past 2 weeks, since I last podcasted and I pulled this out, I started somewhere in here, and I'm starting the 3rd wave since I picked it back up. You basically keep going until you cover your pinky, and then you start the decreases at the top. So I'll probably be doing that fairly soon. I have very small hands, and that gives me a certain advantage in making mittens. I can be done with them pretty quickly. I just have to do it. But I liberated my needles, my double pointed needles, so I might actually cast on a sock just to have something mindless to work on whenever I want to knit, but I need to be paying attention to something else, like if I'm watching TV or something. Because color work, I still have to have the chart available, and I have to check it and pay more attention to what I'm doing. But that's what I've been knitting this week. I don't live somewhere cold. As I mentioned, I live in Florida, so mittens are not something I get to wear very often. But the 2 or 3 days of 40-degree weather I might get at some point, they might come in handy. We'll see. I just love doing colorwork mittens. So I actually have a few pair that I've knit over the years that I don't really wear very much, but I'm very happy I made them because I love them so much. And I love the process of colorwork. It's all stranded. You can see my floats. I knit two-handed, so I put the background color goes in my right hand and the foreground color goes in my left hand, and I do throwing and picking, or English and continental at the same time. And that way I don't have to put my threads down, my strands down, while when I get to the end of a round I can just keep going. So that's my knitting for this current setup. I haven't crocheted anything in a while. My hands are starting to feel better from the last time I spent a day crocheting, so I feel a little better about maybe picking something up and working on it. I have that big blanket, the Study of Earth, Study of Planet Earth from the Crochet Crowd. It's sitting on the fireplace hearth next to my couch where I do all of my crafting, and it's just staring at me, so I'll probably work on that. I'm trying to rotate through my crafts again instead of just focusing on one thing, because I was starting to get some pain in my shoulder. So I feel like I need to alternate what I'm working on. Spinning. I did a little bit of spinning yesterday. I'm still working on the Rambouillet Fairy Forest from Fierce Fibers. It's really pretty. I've got maybe a half an ounce of it left. I will probably focus on spinning a lot. It's hard. I can't leave my wheel unattended because my 6-month-old kitten will go after my fiber. So I have to put it away in a room she can't get to every time I'm not immediately working on it. But there's an event coming up. One of the benefits of living in Southwest Florida is that my local yarn store, which is actually about an hour away, is a Good Yarn in Sarasota, and a Good Yarn is sponsoring their own version of the Spinzilla competition. Since Spinzilla no longer exists and they missed doing it, they're going to put on their own Spinzilla, and it starts on June 6th. So I want to clear as many bobbins as I can so that when that starts I can really go to town. I have a lot of fiber from the Shave 'em to Save 'em program that I really want to get through. I'd really just like to work on my stash and get it a little smaller. You know, just I want to finish things, and that's where I am with that. I'm starting to get the itch to spin, so I think this is a good timing for them to have a little challenge. And I'll get my ladybug out. I have 2 wheels. I have the shacked sidekick, which is, I call it my primary wheel because I take it to my knitting group when we're still allowed to be out in public. I do most of my singles spinning on that, and then I have a ladybug from Shacked as well, and that I just leave it set up with my bulky flyer, and I do a lot of my plying on there, or if I'm spinning something that I have a lot of fiber for. If I have more than 8 ounces of something, I like to do it on my bulky bobbins, so that I don't have to do separate skeins of things. I just bought new bobbins for my bulky flyer from Acreworks, so I'll show those when they arrive, but that'll enable me to do even more on the ladybug, which is exciting. So spinning is happening. I don't really have a lot to show you at the moment because I'm still working on the same stuff that I was talking about in, I think, every video so far. So we'll move on. The thing I've been stuck on all month and not wanting to do anything else is cross stitch and Blackwork Embroidery. So I have, on the 15th of every month, the Chinese Zodiac clues from Frosted Pumpkin Stitchery come out, so naturally on May 15th, so about 2 weeks ago, they came out with the second clue, and I immediately pulled it out and started working on it. So I finished the second clue, If you'll remember, the first clue had that center lace piece and the 3 animals. So everything else, let me see if I can get a better grip on this. All these flowers, there's a lantern, these flowers, and this whole corner piece are part of clue 2, or are clue 2. And when I started putting this border in, this bright red border here, I realized my tiger, the whole tiger, was 1 stitch to the right of where it needed to be. And this gap here didn't exist as a result. So I actually ripped the whole tiger out, restitched him in the right place, and then I continued on with the border. But I really love this fan in the corner. Isn't that pretty? I think the leaves are really gorgeous. There's some back stitching on there to show the leaf detail. And I love this pattern so much. But I'm done with clue 2, so there's nothing for me to do on it until June 15th. And the plan at that point, getting through it this month, was to switch back to the Animal Almanac, which is their annual stitch along. And I'm not caught up with that. I haven't worked on it. I need to, because I'd like to be caught up on it so that, like the Chinese Zodiac, I can stitch it, stitch, 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 get it caught up, and then I don't have to touch it till the next clue comes out. That's the ultimate goal, and then that way I can feel less guilty about working on other things. But what I did instead, the Frosted Pumpkin Stitchery, one of the members in the Facebook group decided to declare a stitch along, and the pumpkins themselves, Amanda and Ashley, got in on it and said, yes, let's do that. So for Cinco de Mayo, they suggested a stitch along of their Pen Pal pattern Piñata Party. Say that 5 times fast, right? Pen Pal Piñata Party. So I happen to have, it calls for the sparkle fabric, the crystal cashel. I don't have it, but I had the right color in the knot crystal. This is Sprite from Picture This Plus or Hanging Thread. And I had all of the called for threads. There's the border's done in a Weeks Dye Works color called Sea Glass, and there's some Krennic number 8 braids for the metallic. And I put it right in the corner of this fabric so I can use it for other things, but I'm really, really happy with how this turned out. It's such a quick stitch, and they've got 15 or 16 of these Pen Pal patterns that cover every holiday ever. So I'm definitely going to be looking into stitching more of those, because I like a quick stitch, a instant gratification kind of thing, because you finish it quickly. It's a nice counterbalance to these annual stitch-alongs where the pattern is just huge. Yeah, you do little bits at a time, but it's still a sizable piece, and it can be a little daunting, you know, to look at something and go, there's 100,000 stitches in that. You know, sometimes that can be a little overwhelming. So I like having these little small pieces that I can do quickly in a day or two. The other thing I've been working on after I finished Piñata Party, actually, what did I do next? Another stitch along that I'm doing called the Steotchalone. This is from Steotch. They have an Etsy shop and a website and everything, but they sponsor a mystery stitch along once a year. And because of the shutdown, the lockdown, quarantine, whatever you want to call it, they decided to do a separate one earlier in the year because everybody's stuck at home. And it's not a mystery. They took a pattern that they already did. They made it monochrome. Or at least you pick a palette, and like I went with greens. And it's called Bless This House, and it's a picture. That's a face. When it's done, I've done clue 1, part 1, pattern 1, whatever you want to call it, and I've started pattern 2 around this border here, but everything else is part of pattern 1. This will be a picture of Hugh Laurie's face, and it says bless this house. It uses, there's 5 different colors. I went with the greens palette that they recommended, and you actually see that's just a really light green. I don't know if I can get in there, but it's just brilliant use of color to create you know, the contours and shaping and shading of a human face, because if you go and you seek out the pattern to look at it, or you know, wait and see what mine looks like, it's very, very realistic, lifelike picture of Hugh Laurie in this case. You do some color blending, so even though there's only 5 different threads, there are spots in this where it'll say use one strand of this color, one strand of this color, and you stitch them together as the 2 strands that you would typically do, to get even more shading and more color variation. And it's challenging to see what I'm doing as I'm filling it in. This is the first time I've blended threads, but I'm really happy with this. It looks really wonky right now because it's, you know, it's only part of it. The 3rd pattern came out on Sunday, so it's been out almost a week now. But I got caught up on part 1, so I'll come back to that in a day or 2. I took a break from that. I went through and reorganized my threads again, and I found the next 3 colors that I need for my Blackwork Embroidery. So this is the Peppermint Purple Blackwork Sampler for 2020, and I did these 3 squares. I wanted to do this one, but I couldn't find the skein for the recommended colors. Let me get in there nice and close so you can see. I'm really enjoying this. Blackwork is just, it's very satisfying, it's very quick, and it's so pretty. So that, I'll come back to it. I think I know where the skein is I need for that last block, so I'll dig that out and see what I can do. I'm working on this from Frosted Pumpkin Stitchery. This is the Merry and Bright, which was their Christmas club from 2 or 3 years ago. And I finished the R and the I. This uses a hand-dyed kind of tonal color from Weeks Dye Works, and I just have to fill this in, honestly. Like, there's colors that go in here, and then I gotta finish the tree, there's another person, there's a little gingerbread man that hangs out in there, so that's probably gonna be a quick finish if I spend enough time on it. And then I set up but have not yet started. We'll call it a new start, but I haven't actually stitched anything yet. This is the Plague Nurse. This will be the Plague Nurse from Night Flight Studios. I've marked the center stitch so I know where to start. I've put together a quasi kit, and I've got my needle minder on there and a lovely little F-bomb, because we all need an F-bomb once in a while. I was going to start that so that I had some stitches to show you for this, but I didn't get to it. I was reading in one of my groups on Facebook, people were talking about stitching related injuries, and they were one lady was talking about her shoulder and how she actually tore muscles in her shoulder, and when she switched to a lap frame, that changed everything. She was able to heal, and I've been stitching a lot, so my shoulder's been bothering me a lot in very, I mean, I'm in a lot of pain, to be honest. I used to be really, really flexible. Like, I could take my arms up over my head and go 90 degrees to my back out this way with both arms. Just, I can't do that with this arm anymore. I can barely, it starts to hurt right there. And considering I used to be able to go all the way back 90 degrees and I can't right now, it's a little frustrating and it's disturbing, and I think it's because I'm stitching so much. It's not, you know, I'm not rotating through my crafts, I'm just cross stitching, and I think that's the issue. So I talked to my husband about trying to figure out some sort of clamping system so that I don't have to hold my Q-snaps. Ooh, I felt that, so maybe I'm onto something here. I didn't do any cross stitching yesterday, and I'm not going to do any today. I'm knitting or I'm spinning instead. I want to see if maybe the pain starts to go away. I've been swimming, and that seems to help. Like when I'm, paddling or whatever, I can feel my shoulders stretching, and it's a little uncomfortable, but I feel so much better afterwards, like for the rest of the day. So I think I'm gonna either at least limit myself, if not avoid stitching entirely until I feel better, which is frustrating because I still very much want to be cross stitching and I want to finish things. I can work on other stuff and maybe not hurt. So we'll see. It sucks getting older. Yeah, so that's what I've been doing the last 2 weeks. I've been cross stitching and hurting myself apparently. I did a little knitting, did a little spinning, and yeah. The rains have begun here in Florida, so unless I get up at the crack of dawn, running and biking aren't happening because I prefer to do that at night around 7. When the sun's down but it's still light out, that's ideal, particularly for temperature reasons. But it's usually pouring at that point, and at least on my bike, I can't wait till the sun goes down. I have no problem going for a run when the sun is down and it's dark, but on my bike, I don't know, for some reason that really just doesn't do it for me. So I may have to become a morning person and get up earlier to do that. Swimming I can do any time of the day, so as long as it's not raining, I go out and I do laps for I'm up to a half an hour. I want to get to an hour, and I want to do that every day, so that's the goal. It's Friday. I usually record on Thursdays, but it's Friday. I didn't get to it yesterday. My mom wants me to take her shopping list and run some errands for her later, so I may do that. I wanted to get this in before she gets annoyed and I have to go out. So we'll see. And I'd like to beat the rain too. It'll probably start around 3 o'clock. So yeah, so that's what I've been doing. I will put all my social media information in the description box, and like, subscribe, do all the YouTube-y things, and yeah, till next week. Have a good one.